Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'd like to thank everybody for the love you showed the my previous video. Uh, you ain't black. Comments about what Joe Biden said. I appreciate the love that you showed there in the comments and the thumbs up. I don't know if you'll do the same for this. Maybe you won't feel the same way, but I think that it's time for me to comment. I've waited long enough. This has to do with the George Floyd situation in Minnesota. Strangely, Minnesota, a fairly liberal state, that wouldn't expect these kind of things to happen in a place like that, or New York, or Philadelphia, or uh, for that matter. But these things are happening now. We are all caught up in what was the police officer's motives. Well, that's impossible to know. It's impossible to know. Um, have we seen racist behavior in this police officer before? Has he been known to say racist things, behave in a racist manner? I don't know. Do you know? Do you know? Don't know. So I don't know. But what I did kind of see, there was a fairly apparent disregard for life. I heard someone mention today on social media a gentleman who was an ex-police officer. Um, what he was most concerned about, and this is something that we should consider, that there were four of them. There were three other police officers there, and Mr. Floyd was subdued. He was subdued. He was handcuffed. He was on the ground. He didn't seem to be posing a threat to anyone. And it would seem to me that at that point, for police officers who still have their weapons and still have their tasers, probably would have been able to handle one suspect. Now, on this at the same time, we've all seen people strung out on PCP that seem to have the strength of 10 men, but that didn't seem to be the case here. I know people are saying, well, maybe he was on drugs. That didn't seem to be the case here. The toxicology reports are going to be out soon enough, probably 5 to 6 weeks, and we'll find that out. But from the video, it didn't seem to be the case. It seemed to be that this subject was fairly well subdued, and the continued pressure on his neck or his lungs on the back um, seemed to be a bit excessive. Now, is there a way that I know that for sure? No. But we can draw some conclusions from what we saw. It seemed to be a little excessive, and I will tell you from personal experience, saying you can't breathe is evidence that you can. I know that from personal experience. I know that because in 2014, I went to the hospital because I couldn't breathe. And before I passed out and was in a coma for 3 days, I heard myself screaming at the top of my lungs that I couldn't breathe and I was drowning. A really bad lung infection. And I couldn't breathe. But I was in incredible distress. And my heart stopped. I ended up having triple bypass surgery because I had congestive heart failure. So there could be any number of things that Mr. Floyd died from. Um, this wasn't one of those outlawed chokeholds that we used to see back in the 60s and the 70s, where people would basically use the sleeper hold on people and kill them. But it seemed excessive. I think what needs to happen next, what do I think needs to happen next? What needs to happen next is that we need to find out, I need to find out what Mr. Floyd died from. If he died from a condition, and this is from a nurse friend of mine, um, I can find it. It is an asphyxia, a positional asphyxia. I believe that what she said it was. oops, that's not where it is. Hang on just a second. Positional asphyxia. Sometimes you just get turned in a way that you can't breathe. Your neck gets turned in a way, turns off, the air pipe gets restricted or whatever. So if Mr. Floyd suffered from positional asphyxia, then yes, the police officer will be responsible for it. It also seems that if, and I wish this was my original thought, but it's a thought worth sharing, that police officers are also first responders. And if someone seems to be in trouble, then they should respond. And it seemed like Mr. Floyd at some point in this transaction was in trouble. If Mr. Floyd had been bleeding from somewhere, then they would have made sure that Mr. Floyd got treatment. If Mr. Floyd was on fire, then they would have made sure that Mr. Floyd got treatment. But when he was screaming that he couldn't breathe and then basically passed out, nobody thought, and I guess this goes back to training, and it also goes back to integrity. No one thought to see if the man was okay. Once he's in your custody, you're kind of responsible for him. Now, I'm not crapping on cops, but once people are in your custody, you're kind of responsible for them. That none of the other officers thought to, hey, wait a minute, let's see if this dude's okay. You still had, if one guy was looking out to make sure he was okay, you still had 3 other people. Huh. This is going to be another case. Well, first, we're going to have to see what happened. Second, we're going to see the justice system do what the justice system is supposed to do. If indeed the police officer is responsible, then he needs to be charged with the correct crime, not the crime of emotion, but the correct crime. Be convicted by a jury of his peers, if indeed that's the case, and then deal with his punishment. And in the meantime, the rest of us will do better with cooled, calm, collected, thought out, purposeful advocacy for victims. That's what I'm suggesting. My name is William Lawson. I am the CEO of fightbackmedia.com. Till we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, for goodness sakes. Y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see.